So today we're speaking with Brooklin Nash, who is a B2B freelance content marketer, strategist, and consultant who's worked with companies like Mixpanel, TrustRadius, and Media Radar before. Thanks for coming on, Brooklin.
Been freelancing for about 8 years. About 4 years ago, I feel like I made the switch from being a freelance writer to being a content marketer, learning a little bit more than what I was able to do before. And in the last 2 years, I worked for a couple of different startups full time, a tiny sales startup first, and then moved over to Outreach on the Sales Hacker community and content team. And then just about 6 weeks ago, I jumped back into doing my own thing again.
One recent innovative marketing campaign, maybe you or any company you worked with have conducted, and maybe using some of the content you've written?
The first thing I thought of was in my time at Sales Hacker. This was last August. This was a few months ago. It feels like a lot longer ago. Wow. We put together a sales stack report. So we took a bunch of tools designed for the sales team across enablement, revenue intelligence, conversational intelligence, sales engagement, 7 different categories, and ran a survey to over 1,000 salespeople, demand gen folks, sales leaders, frontline reps, kind of the whole gamut of the go-to-market org on kind of their thoughts around those tools, how they rank them in terms of efficiency for reps, their impact on what they were doing for their sales motion, and the ROI from the tools, just to serve as kind of a benchmark report for the wider sales industry. And the reason I thought of it is, number one, it was a lot of fun to work on. And number two, it just had so many more benefits to focus on one core piece of content like that went really in depth and relied on the perspectives of more than 1,000 salespeople and marketers, rather than a series of blog posts or something like that. So it took a few months to gather the responses, turn them into the insights we wanted to share, get those charts designed, write up the report, and then release. But it just kind of had not far-reaching impact as much as it was perfectly situated for lots of different channels. It was partner marketing because we could send it out to the companies that we included. It was social because we could reuse those charts for a bunch of different insights. We had more than 30 charts to pull from the report. A little bit of lead gen, some community value. There's just lots of pieces that got pulled in with this single report. So it was technically one piece of content, but it felt much bigger than that.
What's one piece of marketing strategy, mindset that you're really excited about going into next year?
Benchmark reports aren't new. Doing research as a SaaS company that's related to your niche and what your audience is interested in isn't new, but I think it's getting more and more popular, which is what I'm really excited about. Whether it's basing it on your own proprietary data with things like Intricately, where they're reporting on like cloud data usage and giving very specific insights, or Media Radar looking at how companies are spending their ad dollars, or something like what we did at Sales Hacker, where you're going out and getting your industry's input on something that you care about as a solution and that your customers care about. I think, this is super anecdotal, but I'm seeing more and more of that type of content going out the door. And I think that'll continue to be true in the next year.
Curious, for someone who wants to start creating that sort of high quality, high volume content, or I guess length content, what's a good first step?
It was a huge learning experience to me because I had never run a survey or even done, pivot tables or equations in Google Sheets, right? So from beginning to end, I kind of had to learn all of it. In terms of first step, honestly, hopefully it doesn't feel like a plug, but Erin Balsa, she was at Predictive Index and was also consulting and freelancing. She has a course, I forget how much it is, but relatively inexpensive for what it is. And it's exactly on this. It's how to create a research report from beginning to end. And she goes through how to write your survey questions. She goes into how to hire out a data scientist so that you don't have to worry about what I spent hours in Google Sheets on, how to promote and distribute, it's a beginning to end guide. It's super helpful.
On the flip side, my last question: what's one thing you're ready to see end in 2022?
I don't know if it's end so much as shift. I'm excited to see a more meaningful conversation around how businesses, large businesses, or mid-size, even enterprise, can leverage personal brand. I think personal brand conversations have blown up the last couple of years, but it's very individual and not a lot on how companies and go-to-market teams can capture that energy, make it part of the strategy, measure results, and incentivize in the meantime. There's just like a lot of personal brand gurus talking about their personal brand on social, right? And saying like LinkedIn is the way to, if you're a seller, like it's all social selling, or if you're a marketer, this is how you make a difference in career. And it's very individual. I do think it's a positive, but I think it's hit a point where it doesn't seem like anybody's saying anything new. And the irony here is that, I mean, I'm very active on social, right? And saying this, that personal brand doesn't matter, but I think there needs to be something to bridge the gap between this conversation that's going on and the conversation that needs to happen for how companies can leverage that, invest in that, measure that for their marketing strategy, right?
What do you think are some of the best ways or strategies they can develop that personality? Is it content? Is it just a unified voice?
First part's going to sound like a cop-out answer because it's so vague and depends on your organization, but building a culture around it, which again is why I think very few companies have done it well. I think there's two I can think of, two in the sales space, Dually and Gong. Whatever, I don't know what their internal processes or incentivization or culture is, but whatever they're doing around that seems to be working, because from it's not just a handful of people. It seems like, at least from the outside, the entire team is buying into this, right? So building a culture where you're encouraging people to create and be creative is probably the first step, or at least something to watch as you take the steps.
My last question for the day is: what are some top tools, maybe one or two, that you're just obsessed with right now?
They're not the most exciting answers, but I'm on SEMrush every day. I don't think it's just like, I think a lot of people think of it as an SEO tool, but I think it's helpful in lots and lots of capacities. Looking for partners, looking at competitor research, obviously the SEO research elements, looking at your own pages. I just, anytime I'm on a new site or jumping on a call with somebody, I check out their site on SEMrush first, because then I get a quick view of, instead of having to like manually go through and look at the last month's worth of content or something, I can see what is really resonating and impactful in what they have up, right? It's Loom. I use that all the time to send videos to clients, explaining something, giving feedback on content so that it's screen share and I can run through it. I think it just helps. We're not new to the remote working environment, right? But it helps bridge that gap. So it's not just an email or just a Slack message. You actually have a face-to-face, and probably takes less time. It takes me less time to explain my feedback in a 5-minute Loom video than it would be to figure out how to encapsulate all of that in an email.
Where can people find out more about what you do or reach out?
More often I do content marketing strategy and execution for B2B SaaS companies. So if that's you, I'm on LinkedIn, you can find me. I also, we've been freelancing for a long time. So if you're a freelancer, whether you're freelance growth marketer or content marketer, writer, whatever it is, I'm starting to put more content together around that space. So that's more on Twitter. That's kind of the breakdowns. LinkedIn for B2B content, Twitter for freelance content.